What's up, traders? Matt from the Trade Brigade here with your weekend crypto report, where as always, I do a technical analysis and give you my thoughts on the coins listed up above. No major changes to our watch list this week. However, Ripple is sort of on the cusp of being dropped here, especially with the lawsuit stuff going on. The fact that it perked up over the past week is why it's still on the list today, but we'll continue to monitor the situation there. The other thing I like is that TradingView actually had an update, and we can now see all of the pictures of our coins. Just kind of interesting there. That's besides the point. Let's jump right into the analysis. Enough with the funny business here. Bitcoin daily time frame. What do we have on our hands? In last week's video, we were talking about $41,150 still being the line in the sand that needs to break before we flip to being a little bit more bullish in Bitcoin. And we certainly did recapture that over the course of, last weekend and this week. If I scrunch up the chart just to remind you, maybe you're not familiar with the level, it's coming from the top end of block number one, all of this resistance in here, and then we break and retest. So break and retest, hold as support, and then make that new all-time high run. That's why it was such an important area to recapture. Now that we're back, there goes the bell for the regular market, by the way, 4 o'clock. Anyways, now that we are back above that level, we can start to skew our thinking slightly more towards the bull side. Obviously, the resistance trend line has broken. We don't need that on our charts anymore. What I would start to watch for is, does this pullback here support off of $41,150, or do we crack through it and move to the support trend line that we now have in place? In an ideal world, we hold up at the 41K, we're just going to round it from now on, 41K mark here, and build out a little bit of an inverted head and shoulders, right? Something that looks like this. We have a break retest. The more aggressive traders will be looking for smaller time frame reversal patterns around that 41K mark for the leg back higher to the neckline, and the more conservative long traders will enter up and over the neckline looking for a move to these prior structural highs in here, roughly $51,500 inside of Bitcoin. And the breakout of the neckline, by the way, is $45,800 per coin. So that's what I'm seeing here. The trend is definitely starting to shift back to the upside here, noting that we have lows, higher lows. If this holds here, another higher low, all we would then need is another higher high to continue this little uptrend that we're building. So Bitcoin definitely on the turn here. It's all about how this pullback pans out. If we break and go to the support trend line, it needs to hold there. Otherwise, in the grand scheme of things, on like a weekly time frame chart, nothing more than a bear flag, right? So it really has to hold either one or two. If not, I would imagine that the slide continues to the downside in Bitcoin. We know that this swing low will obviously be the first target for the equal low. That's roughly $34,000 per coin, and anything underneath that, it's all about 30K Bitcoin, which we've been harping on and on about for the past couple of weeks. Let's continue along here and talk about Ethereum. This one doing something similar, however, not above its resistance trend line. Notice that we are still below it. That's where we're pulling back off of. It's also this prior structure from in here. Not the end of the world. We did obviously produce a new higher high from what we had in here. In my mind, what I would watch out for now is just, can we hold on to the breakout point? So this level right here, roughly 28.10. As long as we can hold on to that, this support trend line is certainly a little bit steep there. As long as we can hold on to the breakout point though and form a higher low from what we have in here, fine. The uptrend is still intact. Maybe it pulls around and does something like this. A little bit sloppier, but nonetheless still an inverted head and shoulders correct with a neckline break happening there. Roughly $3,200 per coin, right? So a more conservative trader, your entry is probably a firmer break of the resistance trend line off of a higher low. Your target, of course, is here at 36.58, coming from all of the instances that we've had of interaction in the past, namely the big flush point that built. That's where the selling really accelerated from. It's almost like we're going back to quote unquote the scene of the crime. That would be the upside target first on the break of that pattern here and the resistance trend line. To the downside, if we do not hold on to that breakout high, again, probably not looking great, especially considering that the support trend line will have broken at that point. We would probably look for the equal low coming in around 23.10. As of right now, again, with crypto sort of perking up a little bit, I would be a little bit partial to the upside here. I want to see it do something like that. Of course, the market's always going to do whatever it wants to do. It's not going to do what we want it to do, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about, at least in these two big coins at least. Now, as we move forward, notice that Binance Coin is not as strong, right? So certainly getting into the resistance trend line, it's not even the primary, and we're just barely above that neckline breakout. Remember that we talked about all this sideways chop in here. It's just not the biggest, I would much prefer to just trade Bitcoin or Ethereum as opposed to Binance Coin right now. Obviously, the line in the sand is the breakout point around 393.60, and the next step would be to break the resistance trend line to get us here to about, what was that, 455? Even with the structure that's kind of going on here, I don't even know, 455 may be a target. It's probably just these equal highs in here. So a little bit lower, 440 is probably more realistic inside of Binance Coin than from there. So what we're going to do actually is we're just going to adjust this, right? So we now have that high. We're going to do something like that. So 434, okay, that's the first break. So maybe it's something like this instead, consolidation. If we can break that off of an ascending triangle, that certainly opens up the door once again to quote unquote the scene of the crime, closer to $500 per coin. That's also a big psychological number. So that is probably the more logical trade to take inside of Binance Coin. Again, a little bit of relative weakness. I would much prefer to trade Bitcoin or Ethereum. This one, I'll put it on watch. Maybe there's something to have here up and over that 434, but to me, just not as strong as our other coins so far. You can also start to draw in a little bit of a support trend line, something like this. Obviously, if that breaks, just like the rest of the coins we've been discussing today, you would expect the equal low closer to about 335, all right? Next up, we have Cardano. And again, just weakness, no good strength like what we've seen in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Even this is worse than Binance Coin in my estimation. You can clearly see that we're just hanging out sideways down here, even failing on the back test of that area there, close to 120. So probably ping pong in here. I would be patient and either just wait for a long up and over this to get into the resistance trend line. Even then, you're only looking at about a 16-cent move. Is that worth your time? I'm not entirely sure. I'd probably watch any of the other three coins we've covered so far before I, watch Cardano here. But it's just going to simply come down to which way do we break out of the range. Right now, we're smack in the middle. We're literally at the midpoint of the range. Your edge does not exist here. Your edge literally exists at the edge for a breakout or mean reversion. Same is true, but opposite at the bottom end, correct? So right now, Cardano is probably something you don't touch, either up and over 120 for longs into the resistance trend line, or if you have the capability of shorting this, maybe on something like KuCoin, an alternate broker or whatever, if you can take out $1 to the downside, next support is really 80 cents. So maybe, again, I would probably just avoid touching it at all, but if that's what you're so inclined to do, 80 cents is the next level underneath us. Let's continue along and talk about Solana. This one, a little bit similar to Binance Coin, quite frankly, maybe even more like Cardano, just noting that here we go. We're right back at this breakout point. If you start drawing this as the range, we're at the midpoint. I'm just not seeing anything clean here. You could even, if we started to draw in this support trend line, right? That's been broken on today's session. So to me, just nothing to do here inside of Solana. It's a patience move, honestly. Maybe over the course of longer time, we do something like that for a double bottom, especially if this is going to get dragged higher with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe Binance Coin moving higher as well. But still, right, where's the entry point? Up and over the neckline of the double bottom, it's just not in play. There's nothing to do here right now inside of Solana, in my estimation. Be patient, wait for something to develop here, some more structure. As of right now, kind of sloppy, choppy. And that's all we're looking at here. If it does turn around, let's say there's a V-shaped bottom, we get up to this high, you could start to look at that as a higher low from here to here. A breakout up and over the resistance trend line at this point in time is going to bring us to our next target here, closer to 151, but it's got to clear all of this stuff first, right? I wouldn't really push your luck until we can firmly break out up and over 130 roughly inside of Solana. Next up, we have Link. And what do we have here? Again, not a pretty chart. Sure, it is starting to build a little bit of a daily channel to the upside, something like that. Cracking the support trend line as of right now. Maybe that breaks into the weekend. I'm not entirely sure, but there's your sort of channel. So if we do get any bounce off the low end, it's just a move back to the top end of the channel, which could roughly be, let's call it 2050 into the course of the weekend and maybe next week. That's what you're looking for there. If we really if volume comes in to really support the move higher, let's say there's a big V-shaped recovery, big momentum style bars, big volume coming in, something like what we saw in here, right? Then maybe there's a rotation to here, closer to 2380. Excuse me. So that's one scenario here. The other scenario is that this breaks, right? So more acceptance underneath something here. It's just a move to the equal lows at the base of the start of the channel right here, which is closer to roughly $14. So Chainlink, even this one, again, I'm not really seeing a reason to go long here. Now, it would be a different story if we were printing like a hammer candle down here or even just an indecision doji, but as of right now, it's not happening. Maybe, we've got 2 hours and 51 minutes left on this candle. Maybe if it prints and we get some sort of lower wick, that would be, long over the high, looking for the top of the channel. But as of right now, with this particular candle setup, I'm just not seeing a reason to go long in Link. It looks like it's going to start breaking the support trend line instead of holding it. This is kind of like what we would have wanted to see, right? There's your hammer candle off of the support trend line, makes the rotation to the top end. That's what we want to see. As of right now, we're not seeing it. So there's nothing to really do here. And again, you're probably not going to short this into 14. Next up, we have Ripple. This is the one that was a little bit of a surprise surprise here. Look at the big move to the upside. I'm not sure if there was news about the lawsuit that came out or some sort of catalyst that made this happen here, but nonetheless, massive move on big volume as well. So that's going to give you a little bit more confidence as opposed to be skeptical of the move. However, let me remind you of the support trend line from the year-long consolidation range that we were in. Look where we resisted, okay? So is it any coincidence that we resisted there? In my estimation, no. You could say, sure, it is. Yeah, of course, it's never going to be perfect like that. But to me, technicals it's no surprise. Like this stuff doesn't just happen, right? It happens because there was structure there, because people were paying attention to that level. It's also 90 cents roughly, right? So to me, if this pullback can't hold for a higher low, then this is going to fall off our radar, right? Maybe this was one last effort to pump it before it sort of falls into oblivion. I don't know. I don't keep up with the fundamentals of the coins, but from a technical perspective, if we cannot produce a higher low off of this, I'm just looking at it as, once again, another failed backtest of that. So if we were to go out to like a weekly, here we go. Look at this, right? So it would just be a break, retest, roll back over for an equal low if we can't get a higher low on the daily, and then reattempt and get back above that support trend line in short proximity of time, right? If this doesn't happen over the next, I don't know, couple of weeks, then again, I probably think we roll over here and drift back down for equal lows around that 60-cent mark. So what's the line in the sand on the pullback? Let's use the Fibonacci's for this one. So coming in from the low all the way on up to the high, we're already cracking through the 38.2, which is not ideal, but the 61.8 is always your line in the sand, and that's currently sitting at, if I just hover the cursor here, about 72 cents. So let me throw a level on there. That's our line in the sand. If we cannot produce a higher low above that number, so something that looks like this, then again, this is probably going to fall off of our radar here in the near term. Let's continue along and talk about Polkadot. Zooming in on this one. What do we have? Another sort of channel. This is more similar to Link, right? If I do something like this, kind of right at it, we are chopping through the resistance trend line. I imagine it just breaks sideways based on time right now. So we're going to remove that off of our chart, clean it up just a little bit, zoom in back in. Again, there's nothing really screaming right now. Hammer candle off of support. That's really what you want to be looking for. It's not here. Big solid bodied red candle. There's nothing really indicating that now is a good time to be buying at the support trend line or this horizontal area that was prior resistance, right? So to me, not seeing the reason to go long. If it does want to perk up a little bit, then to me, the next long trade is up and over 23.35. And reason being, it was the bottom end of this prior range from right around in here. If we can recapture that, it's not technically a look below and fail. We've already put in too much structure underneath for that to happen. Look below and fail is really if the chart were to look something like that. But just because we're breaking back up into structure, I would imagine that we move to the next pivot high, which is kind of the midway of the range. And that target is going to be right here around 28.34. So if there's a turnaround, again, your long is from here to here. As of right now, I'm not seeing a reason to buy the support trend line. If it breaks down firmly, looking for those equal lows, just like we talked about in almost every coin so far, roughly $16. Let's talk about Crypto.com coin. This one certainly did surprise me here. Definitely, we were talking about it. Was it going to act as a leading indicator, right? Remember back a couple of videos now, that was the title. And notice, yeah, it kind of did, right? Bitcoin perked up, even that weird Ripple pump. I'm not saying that this is directly correlated, but you get the gist, right? Crypto.com coin certainly did act as a little bit of a forward-looking indicator. Now, it's only been one instance, so we'll look to see if this sort of happens again and again and again in the marketplace. But as of right now, again, people are sort of getting involved in the DeFi space. Remember that this is a U for utility coin. People use this. They then convert it into other project coins or smaller, not the majorly listed crypto coins. Who knows what they're doing with it, but they are using it. You can see that there is a move higher here in the price of the coin. So again, for now, I am going to start to think of it as a working sort of forward-looking indicator for the crypto market. So as of right now, the next trade here is longs up and over about 50 cents. If we can get some more price acceptance above, targets here at 59 cents, call it 60 even. And then, of course, this is the larger level to be paying attention to, 67. You can see prior flag support, then turning to resistance right here. That 60-cent target is really more of a nuanced level in the midway of that range. So as long as we do something like this, higher low, break the level, ultimately over time, that's probably what we're looking for here inside of Crypto.com coin. We can draw in a support trend line here. This one is respectable with a clean higher low, then making another push off of it. If we get into that, that would be a beautiful spot for the higher low pullback. Also super support with the prior breakout point. To me, makes sense to be looking for long opportunities at that level. So any sort of intraday, could be like an hourly time frame chart, double bottoms, any inverted head and shoulders, even if it's just a simple daily hammer candle that prints down here, long over the high, looking for that rotation back higher. So that's what we've got in crypto.com coin. If it breaks down underneath, obviously, again, equal lows are probably the move in here, closer to about 32 cents. Let's go ahead and remove the resistance trend line, clean up the chart a bit. There we go. Let's move along, talk about Matic. This one pulling back the most aggressive from all the coins we've seen so far today, maybe barring Ripple, right? But that, of course, had that large move to go along with it. We are still technically above the double bottom neckline here. So to me, make or break level is at 169.8. If we don't find some sort of support here, so if we do not print a hammer, if we do not print some sort of indecision doji, then, you know, it's not looking fantastic. Any acceptance underneath the neckline brings us back down to the lows. And in this instance, that definitely is a short enough time period here where I would start to think of that as a look above and fail. Now, it's not pretty, right? In an ideal world, the look above and fail would look something like that without making a move into that next structural element. But we're talking about, you know, theoreticals here, right? For now, the first idea is, okay, does it support at this level? So if it does, looking for the rotation back higher, right? Obviously, the next step would be to make an equal high up around 203, we'll call it for round number's sake. If you want to keep it really simple here, got to hold the support trend line. If it doesn't hold, look for that equal low down closer to about 150 here inside of Matic. Next up, we have Luna. And lastly, quite frankly, and here, clear lower high off of this break of the support trend line. So this one's actually a little bit concerning. It doesn't look as much like a reversal as some of the other coins that we've been looking at so far today. This one actually looks like a continuation move to the downside. So, you know, if you think about this, so high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high here, lower low, equal low, is that the next move here inside of Luna, roughly $44 per coin. So I'm going to go ahead and map that out, 46 based on my drawing. So the eyeballs are definitely not calibrated today. The reason that I'm saying that this is starting to look a little bit more bearish is just because of the resistance, the pullback off of the support trend line, right? So to me, if it was going to be more bullish, it should have broke and then held for a higher low, a clean higher low, well above, and then we could move along on our merry way. But as of right now, I'm just not seeing the reason to kind of go long here. Also, we're underneath that little breakout point, right? Technically on a smaller time frame, this may have looked like a double bottom. Your neckline was here, we broke it. Now we're accepting back down underneath. So to me, this one is not looking quite so hot. To be quite frank, the best chart setups we've seen so far are really in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? This is, to me at least, is just not looking as promising here. So that's kind of what I've got for you in our crypto space for this upcoming week and weekend. If you enjoyed the video today or learned anything new, let me know in the comments section or by giving the video a thumbs up. Don't forget our secondary channel is linked down below in the description. The weekly watch list video will be coming out on Sunday as scheduled. And with all of that being said, I wish you a green trading week.